This is World History Lesson 2, focused on the Neolithic Age. In the Neolithic Age, people started farming, building communities, producing goods, and trading. After the last ice age ended, people began to change the way they lived. They learned how to domesticate or tame animals. More control over animals meant more meat, milk, and wool. People also learned how to grow plants. People no longer had to roam from place to place in search of food. They could grow crops themselves. Gradually, farming replaced hunting and gathering. These changes marked the beginning of the Neolithic Age. Also called the New Stone Age, this period lasted from about 8000 BC to 4000 BC. Historians call the Neolithic Age the farming revolution. The word revolution describes changes that affect many areas of life. Farming first developed everywhere. People scattered across the globe discovered how to grow crops at about the same time. What they grew depended on where they lived. Farming allowed people to stay in one place. Herders still drove their flocks wherever they could find grazing land. Farmers, however, had to stay put. They needed to water their plants and protect them from hungry animals. They also had to wait to reap their harvest, so they built permanent homes and created villages. During the Neolithic Age, villages grew in Europe, India, Egypt, China, and Mexico. The earliest known communities have been found in the Middle East. One of the oldest is Jericho, which dates back to about 8000 BC. Another well-known Neolithic community is Catalhuyuk in present-day Turkey. This village was home to about 6,000 people between 6700 BC and 5700 BC. Some of its ruins have left behind clues to how its residents lived. For example, mud brick houses were packed tightly together. People made wall paintings. They farmed, hunted, raised sheep and goats, worshipped together, and ate fish and bird eggs. Neolithic people had a more secure life. Steady food supplies meant healthy, growing populations. Larger populations meant more workers to produce a bigger crop. Now they had surplus, or extra, to use for trade both within and outside their communities. People made another advance in how they produced things. They began to practice specialization, or the development of different kinds of jobs. Now, not everyone needed to farm, so some people had time to develop other types of skills. These craftspeople made clay pottery and wove cloth. These workers then traded what they made for goods they needed. This kind of thing still happens today. For example, Florida is very good at producing oranges. Georgia is very good at producing peaches. So both states make a surplus, or extra, of what they're good at, so that they can trade one for the other. In late Neolithic times, toolmakers created better farming tools, such as the sickle, used for cutting grain. In some places, people worked with metal. At first, they melted copper to make tools and weapons. After 4000 BC, craftspeople in Western Asia made a discovery. They mixed copper with tin to make a stronger, longer-lasting metal called bronze. It became widely used between 3000 BC and 1200 BC. This period is known as the Bronze Age. This is the end of our lesson on the Neolithic Age. In the next lesson, we'll get into the Mesopotamian civilization, one of the first in the world.